To understand WhatsApp's security architecture, we have to start with a mathematical certainty. The network transit layer connecting two users is functionally impenetrable. This creates a fascinating engineering paradox. If the platform utilizes modern military-grade cryptographic algorithms to lock down the network, why do threat actors routinely succeed in compromising user accounts? The answer lies in a concept called the cryptographic displacement of risk. When a transit channel reaches a point of near-perfect encryption, attackers stop trying to break the math. Instead, they are funneled toward alternative, weaker vectors in the ecosystem. There are three specific zones where this risk is displaced: endpoint compromise at the devices themselves, unencrypted storage in the cloud, and metadata analysis at the server level. To effectively defend this system, we have to isolate exactly how WhatsApp implements end-to-end encryption across these distinct zones. Because threat actors know they cannot break the mathematical transit, they bypass it entirely. They make the user's device and how that user configures their app the true front line of defense. WhatsApp secures its transit layer using the Signal protocol, an open-source cryptographic architecture. A message begins as plain text. Before leaving the phone, it transforms into scrambled ciphertext using AES 256. To unlock it, both devices need a shared key. Instead of sending it, WhatsApp uses a Curve 25519 asymmetric handshake to secretly agree on a key. Finally, the HKDF algorithm generates the secure session keys. Because this entire encryption pipeline occurs locally on the hardware, the WhatsApp servers sit entirely outside the trust loop. They function strictly as blind relays. The corporate servers possess zero knowledge of the decryption keys. They only route raw, scrambled ciphertext from point A to point B. If a hostile intelligence agency or threat actor fully compromised the central WhatsApp servers, they would intercept billions of messages, but acquire zero readable data. Intercepting data in transit is a futile endeavor. The payload remains mathematically opaque as long as keys are held locally on the devices. Mobile messaging presents a unique architectural challenge. You need to securely exchange cryptographic keys, even when the recipient's phone is powered off. WhatsApp solves this by generating a hierarchy of unique encryption keys for every conversation. It starts with a master identity key, generating secondary signed pre-keys and one-time pre-keys. When a chat initiates, session keys are dynamically derived from these pre-keys. This dynamic generation introduces a critical defense mechanism known as perfect forward secrecy. Consider a theoretical attack. A threat actor steals a session key at time t. Under perfect forward secrecy, that key mathematically fails to decrypt historical messages. Older keys are already discarded. It also fails to decrypt future messages, as the system continuously generates fresh keys. The compromise is strictly isolated. Perfect forward secrecy neutralizes the threat of passive, long-term network surveillance. To maintain access, an attacker is forced to seek more persistent, active compromises directly on the device itself. The architecture becomes more complex when we move away from single-device transit to multi-device synchronization. Users can seamlessly link secondary devices like web browsers or laptops. These linked devices operate entirely independently. They do not require the primary phone to be online. To maintain the end-to-end security pipeline, each newly linked device independently negotiates its own unique encryption keys. This brings us to data at rest, cloud backups. In any threat model, storage is a critical vulnerability. A standard default backup uploads chat history in plain text, placing data under the cloud provider's control and breaking encryption. To fix this, the user must manually enable end-to-end encrypted backups. This explicitly encrypts the archive using a localized key controlled entirely by the user. Building an encrypted transit pipeline is an exercise in futility if the resulting data is stored in plain text on a cloud server. The user's storage configuration dictates the actual security of the system. This is the reality of modern exploitation. Threat actors ignore the impenetrable transit and exclusively target the system's edges. The most persistent edge vulnerability is metadata telemetry collected by the central servers. Look at this simulated data packet. The message payload is aggressively obfuscated. However, metadata headers, IP address, timestamp, and device type remain perfectly visible to route the data. By analyzing this, observers can deduce communication networks and behavioral patterns without reading a single message. On the local side, endpoint compromise is highly effective. Malware installations bypass all network encryption, or unauthorized physical access circumvents security entirely because the data is already decrypted on the screen. Attackers target identity through SIM swapping, stealing a one-time password, or social engineering tactics. Stealing that 6-digit OTP allows the attacker to register the phone number on a rogue device. They can then legitimately request valid session keys from the server, effectively hijacking the account's identity. The path of least resistance is never breaking the encryption algorithms. It is entirely about subverting user authorization protocols or mapping metadata telemetry. Reviewing the WhatsApp ecosystem reveals exactly where defenses hold and fail. Network transit lines earn green checks, metadata servers display yellow warnings, and unconfigured endpoints pulse with red warnings. The core finding holds. WhatsApp's Signal protocol provides an impenetrable transit layer. Consequently, successful breaches are almost entirely architectural and configuration-based, rather than cryptographic failures. Securing the perimeter requires mandatory user intervention to harden those endpoints. The first requirement is explicitly enabling two-step verification. This custom 6-digit PIN acts as an internal firewall, preventing an attacker from completing a SIM swap or an OTP theft, even if they control the target's phone number. The second requirement is the manual activation of end-to-end encrypted cloud backups to ensure data at rest shares the same defensive posture as data in transit. This represents the duality of modern platform security. The math protects the network, but the deployment protects the device. In applied cryptography, the math is flawless by default. Ultimately, your security is dictated entirely by the rigorous configuration of your environment.
Please like, share, and subscribe to my channel for more great content.